I'm a human connection specialist, ex-relationship anxiety coach, and founder of Reflection. For the longest time in my life, I am obsessed about understanding relationships, unconscious human behaviors, and life patterns. Through this passion, I have devoted myself to a lifelong journey of exploring how we can raise society's consciousness through reflecting our relationships with ourselves and the world. Reflection invites top thought leaders, spiritual luminaries, scientists, health and wellness experts, and authors to discuss their inner explorations of reflection to find their independent strength and wisdom. Welcome to Reflection. Let's dive in together. And if you enjoy my show and want more journal prompts or exercises, me and my team have been developing a free relationship guidebook for all of you who's listening to this podcast, who wants to work on themselves, who wants to reflect about themselves and their partner. It's going to be free and dropped a little bit before Valentine's Day. So make sure that you stay tuned for it. If you try this one and you like it, you find a lot of value in it, you want to do more deeper work, there's going to be a premium version on Valentine's Day, and that's loaded with exercises, lots and lots of exercises, reflection work, journal prompts, also value packed, designed for you and the relationship that is most important in your life, not just for your loved one, right? Yeah, so head over to my Instagram and watch out. Stay tuned for those drops. I'm going to announce it. They're going to be in my Instagram bio link for sure. The free version is for everyone who wants to, reflect on themselves, work on themselves. Yep, and so if you enjoy my podcast, enjoy my content, make sure you check that out. It's all for you guys. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome back on Reflection. If you're new here, this is Annie, and Reflection is here as your easy and free access to mental health and self-development tools. If you're a repeated customer, thank you, welcome back. Don't forget to rate my shows. And please bear with the noise quality after this. We're having technical issues, and this is the best I can do for this episode, so kudos. Okay, so today I have a very special guest with me. Sanju Amornthep, the founder of Sati App, is here, and he's going to share his valuable life story experience of intense depression journey he went through. He, went through public shaming, TMS, brain shock therapy, and probably got hospitalized twice, right? So much more. He's super resilient now, successfully reduced his medication, and is running a suicide/mental illness prevention hotline app. Sanju, the floor is yours.
So my full name, I think, for everyone is Sanju Sachamaneewongse, which is like a Thai name, but I'm actually an Indian Thai, so my nickname is Sanju. That's where it comes from. And as you said, I founded Sati App. We are both a social enterprise and a nonprofit organization, and we have developed a mobile application that allows people who are stressed or in need of support to reach out to a trained psychological first aider as soon as they're in need of one. And we do it both online and offline, where offline we train health volunteers in Bangkok, and we also go around training teachers in ways that they can provide support to their pupils in schools as well. So this is what we're currently doing. But before Sati App came on, I was actually diagnosed with major depressive disorder and psychosis back in 2015, December of 2015. But I started having my symptoms since March of 2015, I would say, where I would constantly just, feel down and be crying to myself and not knowing what was going on, very confused and very clingy to a few friends, and constantly just feeling bored of life. And sometimes I would go days without showering because I was like, I just couldn't care and couldn't bother anymore. And people just didn't understand what was going on. And then I was having a lot of headaches as well that I think a lot of, people around me thought I had migraine. So I went to get my brain checked up and everything looks all right. So I was cleared after the MRI. And then towards the end of 2015, I started having hallucination, both auditory and visual hallucination as well. Okay. And so before getting diagnosed, I was taken to see a spiritual doctor. And as someone who is a non-believer and and a self-proclaimed atheist, it was very hard for me to be taken there and hearing what all they have to say. And so I quickly ran out of that place. And later got myself checked into a psychiatric hospital and got diagnosed by a psychiatrist with MDD and psychosis. And that was when I started my healing process in 2016. So I went through having to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist, having to go through all these different therapies as well as medication. But normal therapy did not work for me. So then they actually just let me see a psychiatrist to take meds. And so by April 2016, my medication kept increasing. So I am now on 16 pills a day, both antipsychotic, antidepressant, sleeping pills, anxiety medication, and whatnot. But it wasn't still enough. I was still having a lot of suicidal ideation and self-harm ideation. So they said I had to go do a thing called electroconvulsive therapy. But for this one, instead of it being done in a private setting, I had to go to a public hospital to get it done. So I did that at one of the hospitals for almost 30 times. But the issue was that because I was on so much pills, my weight gain went from 95 kgs to almost 150 kgs. And so I developed apnea. And when I develop apnea, that means that, when I sleep or when I go in anesthesia to do the ECT, I would always stop breathing as well. So it became too dangerous to do that now. So they had to stop ECT or electroconvulsive therapy and for me to just focus on medication instead. So I was then hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital. First time was for a week, and it was very peaceful for me, actually. It wasn't scary at all, but it was very peaceful. And it was probably not scary because it was a private setting as well. It was peaceful in the sense that I was with people who were also diagnosed with different sort of mental health disorders. And when you're around those group of people, they understand, the difficulty that you're going through, the pain that you're going through. And so it became like a safe space, a safe haven for me that I can talk to people about what was going through in my mind, and they would not judge me or say that I was thinking about it myself or I'm just making it up. But when it came out of the hospital, then people were like, yeah, it's all in your head. Like all those hallucinations, it's all in your head. Or everything that you're thinking is all in your head. And it became a very toxic environment for me because people didn't understand that it's not just me. A lot of things that I'm experiencing it is coming from somewhere, but I'm not making it up. And so it went on so much that in 2017, I attempted my first suicide. And so I was taken into the hospital. I was put into the ICU. Then I was sent back into the psychiatric ward for the second time. And I remember going in this time, I drew like a volcano. We had like different therapy in the hospital. I had like talk therapy, cooking therapy, music therapy, art therapy. And I remember the first art therapy session, I drew like a volcano because I was burning inside. And I was just there for 7 days inside, and then I came out with an art of me drawing like a beach with sun and everything. And it felt like, again, outside was like that hellhole for me, but inside was a safe space for me because people knew what was going on. And when I came out of the hospital this time, again, people were not blaming me of my mental health disorder anymore. They were blaming me because I attempted suicide. Now they were like, did you not think about your parents? Did you not think about your friends? Did you not think about yourself? Don't you love yourself enough? And if only they could read what I wrote, they would see that the reason I did it was more because of what I felt for other people than what I felt for myself. It was more about not wanting to become a burden for anyone anymore. I mean, think about coming back home and seeing your parents scared of you or afraid of you or thinking that people don't know, you're like a walking ticking time bomb, don't know when you will explode or when you will have the next anxiety or panic attacks. And everyone was always constantly walking on eggshells around you. And it was hard. It was hard on me and it was hard on them. But I asked my parents, I wanted to get away from Thailand for a while. So in September 2018, I flew to stay with my sister in the UK for a couple of months. And over there, it was like people were very open about all these things. People were talking about it. They didn't judge you. They didn't say that it's all in your head. They took time to understand you. So much so that I made a hoodie that says I battle depression. And I was walking in the airport and some guy just came and high-fived me. Like, good job, mate. And I was like, cool, thanks. And I was so big at that time. I was like 156 or 160 kg, so I was huge. And I was flying from Birmingham to Copenhagen. And I sat down in this small aircraft and I felt so bad because I was taking up more than just one seat. Right? So this old lady next to me, I was like constantly apologizing to her that I'm big. So I was like, I'm so sorry I'm big. I know that. I'm taking a bit of your seat as well. I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. And I then, told her about my story. And before we landed in Copenhagen, she was like, can I take your hand? And so she held my hand. And she was like, I know what you went through. I knew my son went through the same thing. Here's a Bible that I have. And here's a verse that I want you to read every time that, you feel down or you don't feel good about yourself. Hopefully it'll be able to help you. She just held my hand and she asked me if she could pray for me, and she did it. And she gave me that Bible that I still kept till today. And it was just for me where she understood where I was coming from, and she didn't tell me that, oh, you should go exercise, oh, you should stop eating this and that, oh, if you see a Thai person, oh, เดี๋ยวนี้อ้วนขึ้นนะทำไมอ้วนขึ้นอ่ะ
Well, you gotta.
Yeah, she didn't take any time to describe my physical appearance, but she took time to understand my emotional well-being at the time, and for me that was something that was very much needed. But then when I came back to Thailand, it was again same. People constantly saying that it's your fault. It's your fault. The way that you are, it's your fault. It's all because of whatever's going on with you thinking about yourself that way. So much so that I started writing a lot of more hurtful and harmful stuff on Facebook. And I was also searching all of these like sad quotes on Pinterest. So much so that Facebook actually notified me that, are you okay? If you're not okay, here are the numbers, you can contact. And so I screenshot it and I posted it on my Facebook. And I got a few comments, but the comments were more about, oh my God, Facebook is so awesome, to be sending that. And maybe just one comment out of those is like, hey, you're not okay, I'm here for you. And Pinterest also sent me an email like, hey, are you okay? If you're not okay, here are the numbers that, you can connect to as well. And in 2018, it was getting too much again. Too much of people not understanding me, too much of people judging me, too much of people telling me what to do when I didn't even ask them for any suggestions. And so I attempted my suicide again in 2018, but this time I called a suicide hotline that we have available, but my call went unanswered. So I came out of the hospital this time with this burning sensation that it's not me alone in this hellhole. There are more people out there. And there are more people just needing space to be themselves and space where people just listen to them without judging them. And how can I create more spaces? And I started recording my videos alone. And I was doing all of these self-production myself. And I believe you're doing so as well. And it's just so hard. It takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
Like thinking about the content, thinking about what to say and then editing it. And I was like, this is too much, taking too much time on myself. I just need to create this space where people can just have someone. And so that's why the idea of Sati App came. And I shared earlier to you before the podcast as well that, one of the inspiration was a work being done by a doctor in Zimbabwe, where they have, one mental practitioner to millions of people. And where he set up this foundation called the Friendship Bench, where he would train grandmothers in empathetic, communication. And have these grandmothers be seated around villages and have them listen to youth who are, having crises of their own. And doing so, he was able to reduce the suicide rates in different villages. And we wanted to mimic that in Thailand as well, where we're able to just create army of empathetic listeners around in cities, in urban setting, in rural setting, and have them seep into different communities in Thailand. And so that people can just feel that they constantly have this someone ready to listen to them every time they're in need of that support. And so we started working on this idea since 2018. And now we are in, 2022. We launched our mobile application last year. And to date, we have about 9,000 users on our application. And we have about 330 volunteers on our application who have been trained in psychological first aid. And we don't do it just on an online setting. During pandemic, we also went to train healthcare volunteers also in 50 districts across Bangkok in basic psychological first aid as well. And last week of November, I'll be flying to one of the provinces far away from Chiang Mai city center as well to look into the current state of mental health in that village and provide them support, working with their cultural aspect, their dialects and whatnot, to build up a workshop that would fit the students over there, and how the teachers could then promote a long-lasting emotional well-being for the children as well. So we're doing a lot of work right now, and we are hoping to use the data that we collect to shift the narrative of mental health in Thailand. Because a lot of times people think that, oh, I'm stressed, I need to run to a psychiatrist, I need to run to a psychologist, but that's not really the case.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're stressed, you just need someone to listen to you. And if there's someone who can hold that space for you, for a few times, you might already feel better about yourself. You don't really need to go on to seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist. So how can we shift the policies in Thailand to be more at the foundational level, where we provide community support and peer support, and then filter people who actually need higher psychological intervention to then go into get those help. So we're working at it from a more community aspect, as well as working it on from a policy perspective of how we can localize and shift the policies in the country as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your story. It's very impactful, and I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from this as well. So just want to rewind back to your story of depression, right? So you're not on 16 pills a day anymore.
No. I've reduced by a lot, so I'm now down to 3 from 16. I tried stopping, but it didn't really work that well for me. And it could also be because my body has already been so normalized by the meds. So I'm now on 3 meds, but it's good. I mean, it's better than 16.
Yeah, definitely. So what helped you go off or reduced?
I think for me, when I was on a lot of pills, it was because there was so much going on, and I was constantly feeling, the symptoms of depression is what? Suicidal ideation, self-harm, anhedonia, where you feel like you don't want to do anything anymore, feeling worthless and whatnot. So these are all symptoms. Insomnia, not wanting to eat. And so the medication did help stabilize a lot of those things, but that's more from the biological perspective. But it's also the social and psycho support that I needed. And at that time, I was constantly hungry for external validation. So I would constantly do anything for anyone, if that means I have to go out of my way to do it for them, and for them to just appreciate me, so that when they appreciate me, I feel good. I feel good about myself, and I feel that I've done something good for the world today. And constantly having to run for that external validation is actually very exhausting. And when you don't have that, you then go back to feeling worthless, because you don't know how to internally validate yourself anymore, because you're constantly looking for that. And for me, when I knew what was wrong with the current structure and system, and when I started having this idea of wanting to change the narrative, not just for myself, but for other people who might be in the same situation as me as well, and knowing that my journey is worth something, it slowly allows me to have internal validation as well. Mm-hmm. So the first time I actually publicly shared my journey was back in 2018 at one of the events that was hosted by the Global Shapers Bangkok. And I shared it. And what happened was that after I shared my story, 200 people in there just got up on their feet and, just clapped their hands for me, and they came to give me a hug and whatnot. And it felt so good that my story created that sort of reaction from people. And so I started sharing my story more, so much so that, in 2019, I was invited to go to London to help develop a youth mental health toolkit with a foundation called Origin from Australia. And then I realized that my lived experience is now being able to use to shape toolkit for youth mental health as well. And then in 2020, I was invited to go to Davos to be on 2 panels in Davos. And I was on a panel with, the head of Wellcome Trust, the head of UNICEF, and the head of Origin. And that felt powerful because I'm not lower than these people anymore, but my lived experience made me equal to them because I have something that they don't have. And that slowly, ignite in me, having that internal validation that my lived experience is not a liability anymore. It's actually an asset for me to be the voice for many people who might be suffering. At the same time, it's also for me to be the voice of people who have gone through it and have other people don't understand the journey. Because those who have gone through the journey understand how hard it is, right? If you have never really, done something to yourself, if you have never really been to that point where you're just constantly YouTubing sad music or depressed music, you don't know how it is. Or, where you have this music, if every time this song comes out, you have to, close your ear or run out of the restaurant right away. A lot of people don't understand that. And they could be in a clinical setting, they could be a doctor, they could be in research setting. And so you now hold that thing that they cherish and that they want. It's like the diamond that they want. And for me, that slowly built in external validation, but also internal validation that I'm worth it.
Yeah.
I have a story that is worth it.
Yeah.
I have the skill that they need and that is cherished and that is worth it. And slowly that builds me to feel more love for myself and more understanding for myself and more proud for myself as well. And that slowly helped me, I think, feel that I can also now slowly, take away bits and bits of medication. And doctor saw that as well. And so he constantly like, okay, let's reduce this. Are you ready? I was like, yeah, I am. Let's do it. And then we tried for 2 weeks. Like, oh, we've been doing very well for 2 weeks. Now let's try this one as well. And so with that self-validation, it slowly helped me reduce the medication to the point where, it's down to 3 meds now as well.
So basically what happened was that you started sharing yourself, whether it's online or offline, and that gave you power, finding your own voice and changing the narrative, seeing your trauma as your gift.
Yeah.
So basically just communicating yourself, who you are, and not trying to hide, not trying to think something's wrong with you or think that depression is bad, and just accepting and admitting that part of yourself.
I think when I was very depressed, the safest space for me was my bedroom, right? Because no one can see me cry, no one can see me do what I want over there. And then when you're about to leave your bedroom, that's when you need to put on all these makeup, all these armor, so that people, don't see the real you. But once you start being true to yourself, once you start being like, hey, this is who I am, right? Then that's when you feel that you don't have to now, okay, I can take up this layer today. I don't want to take this layer out with me. Let me just try going out without this layer. And then you come out and say, oh, it actually worked well. I shared my story to 10 people, and maybe 2 of them took it really well, even though 8 didn't really care, but at least 2 of the 8 took it really well. And then you go on the next day, it was like trying the next layer out. And slowly people just be like, oh yeah, I know Sanju, he's the one who works in the mental health field. And then you now see people respecting you for what you do. And that means that, what you're slowly doing is already working. Mm-hmm. Even though people who respect you still might be the minority, because there's still going to be a lot of people who say that, oh, whatever you're doing, it's all in your head, right? But at least you know that there's still people who respect you. And I think one person who I really cherish, we held a World Mental Health Day event a few weeks ago. And she shared on the stage about her journey where she would use stickers. Like she would constantly put stickers, I think, on her headrest on the bed. And she was like, every day that I do something good, I'll always put a sticker on the bedrest. Sorry. And then she was like, any day that I feel that I've, fallen from the wagon, I'll then look on those stickers to see that I've already done so much as well that it's a constant reminder that today I might fall down, but I've been walking up for so many days. If I fall down today, it's fine. I'm not falling down to the start of the journey. I'm just falling down here. I'll get myself back up tomorrow, and then I'll continue on that journey again. And I have more stickers to show that I've done something good. So I think just finding ways to share to yourself that every time you fall down, you will be able to walk back up again or get back up again, or maybe out of 10 people, there might be just one person who see your worth, and that's good enough. That means that you're doing something good. but also because in 2019 I went on a podcast show as well. It was posted on YouTube, and I shared about my story. And at that time, it was really big. And I saw a comment. I went to rewatch it to see, how was the conversation? Did I say anything stupid or not? And then I saw in one of the comments, and the comment was like, ไม่ต้องฆ่าตัวตายก็ได้เดี๋ยวเบาหวานก็ฆ่าคนเอง
Oh man.
Right? So like you don't have to commit suicide, diabetes will kill you. And you like every time you share something, there's gonna be someone out there who is like
trying to
hate or you or just make fun of you because they don't totally understand it, or that's their coping mechanism, or it's one of those keyboard warriors or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see that, and at times you just need to know that that person doesn't know who you are, and so even if it's external validation, what is really matter is that you find a group of people who truly knows you and reach out to them for support.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they truly know who you are, and they'll be there to support you the right way as well. And if whatever people say about you online, if it's hurtful, then just know that they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
They don't know the real you.
Yeah.
And you just need to learn to let it go.
And most importantly, it's like hurt people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you see someone acting out, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
It's about their trauma, it's about their past. Something in them hasn't been addressed.
Yeah.
And that's why it's acting out here right now. Yeah, so obviously, like, we're just a reflection of each other's in our lives. Yeah, so you managed to find a safe space for yourself, and that's cultivating the power of sharing your story, admitting to yourself of your scars, your wounds, and all of that stuff. And that is a year-long process. It's not like a one-day thing, like...
No, it took a lot of time. Because I've started sharing my story since 2017. And
Facebook knew about it.
Yeah, Facebook knew about it. I started a page called Mental Health Thailand in 2017, and I just started sharing it in English. And then I felt that I didn't want to just do it in English, I want to do it in Thai as well, because I want more people to understand it. I just don't want the minority to understand it. And then I started a page called Kui Kan, because I thought that people need to start talking more about mental health. And so I started sharing my story actually since 2017, and there are people who understand it and who didn't. For example, I shared about my psychosis, how it felt like, you always have devils and demons, whispering in your ears, and they would just say that stop listening to the voices, and then you just need to explain to them that it's not, when it's the voices that you make up, is the voices that you have make up.
Yeah.
But when you're actually having all these hallucinations, you cannot just stop it, because it's the way that your brain is working. It's taking every salient environment around you and turning into your reality. And it's really hard for some people to grasp that as a fact that, oh shit, what is happening to him is actually, it's hard for him to stop, because it's not normal.
Yeah.
And
it's not a choice.
It's not a choice, right? And so it's, sharing is one thing, but it's also understanding that you cannot control how people think about the stuff that you share. Some people might not take it seriously. Some people might take it seriously. Some might find it useful. Some might find it like crap.
Yeah.
But if you feel that doing it allows more people to understand you, then just continue doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 people who listen to you, one of them will feel like, shit, I resonate with this person so much. I just want to learn more, hear more, understand more, and take it as my own healing process as well. That ripple effect might then continue to spread, and you're already doing good by doing that.
So you will have to, did you feel any resistance sharing at first, or for some people it's hard to even just admit that they have depression? I know this because it was difficult for me in the beginning, and for people around me as well. Because there's all these thoughts that oh, someone's gonna judge me, someone's not gonna take me seriously, they're gonna just tell me to go to the hospital. We have all these thoughts. So obviously that's why depression in Thailand, or mental health, anxiety, OCD, it's not being brought to awareness because there's fear in talking about it. So was there fear for you?
So yeah, like you said, there's so much stigma around mental health. Right, especially mental health disorder, that it's hard for you to talk about it out loud, especially if you say, especially let's just take first with the words that we use in Thai, right? Rokjit. That word is already having such a negative connotation to it.
It means like a crazy mind.
Yeah. So if you take an actual translation of Rokjit, it means, wow, I even said Rokjit in like an accent. Rokjit. If you take a literal translation, it means psychosis. But if you take it in a way the media spins it, it becomes pervert, it becomes crazy, it becomes so many other very negative terms, right? And so people don't want to have any association with, all these mental health conditions. For me, I felt that I don't care. I don't care about what people think. I just want to say my mind. I just don't care. I know that my family cared to a certain level that you shouldn't be saying this, you shouldn't be saying that, what will people think? But I just didn't care, and I just continue, being on that rogue mind of my own and being a rebel that I want to share to the whole world. But certain people, they have their own mentality towards it. And I think the sooner you're able to accept that something is not right, the sooner you're able to get onto that healing journey for yourself and not create any harm towards yourself or other people around you as well. And you just need to do what is best for you. If you feel that sharing it, you're scared of what people might think, then fine, don't share about it. But at least just accept that something is not right.
Yeah.
And I need help. I need support right now. Yeah. And then slowly, maybe once you feel better, you might feel ready to open up, but at least acceptance is key first, self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance, and also knowing that the process is going to take time.
Yeah.
And like we spoke earlier before the podcast, that there's no perfect fit for a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You need to let yourself trial and learn, I like this part about her and him. I think I'm going to go further for someone else who has the same traits, but maybe something more. For some people, medication works, like you said, right? And for some people, it doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah, for some people, you might need both counseling and medication. Yep. But you are the only one who can determine the right fit, the right kind of healing for you. For me, medication didn't work at all with me. I'm always anti-meds. And that's because I'm just not born needing meds at all, right? So that's my opinion, and I think everyone should carry that as well. But obviously, when you're depressed, you're willing to accept any help, any external validation, or anything, that's given to you, but also have conscious or be mindful about what is given to you, how you process it, and how you internalize, integrate it into your life. That's part of accepting it too. If you're just very fixed on a psychiatrist or a way of healing, then you're not really accepting of the world or of yourself. And I do need other alternative ways of healing as well. Yeah.
I think it's very correct because you know yourself best and you know what is good for you and what's not. And when you go see a psychologist, psychiatrist, it's very important to just, be as transparent as possible so that you do get the right type of treatment. And at the same time, you need to know that, finding a psychiatrist or psychologist, like finding, your boyfriend or your girlfriend, finding the right partner. Going on first or two, the first or the second session might not work. And if it doesn't work, break up, find a new one, right? Until you find that one person, because you're going to be sharing your most intimate feelings with that person. And it might last you 3 months, 6 months, or for me, 7 years, right? 7, right? Yeah, 7 years. And so you just need to make sure that you find the right person you can trust and the right person that you feel, you can relate to.
How many psychologists have you seen? How many
3.
breakups? That's not too long. For 7 years.
Yeah. And then I found the right person and then I just stuck with him, and it's very important to do that. Some people just felt helpless and whichever one you go to, you go to, and then when you have a sour taste with that person, it makes you feel like
no.
I cannot go on this anymore. And you shared earlier, some people need med and some doesn't, and some might need both med and therapy. And I think it's very important for people who are having mental health conditions and people who are supported to understand that mental health disorder is such a complex, multifaceted disorder, right? Because you could have depression, but depression could also mean that you have symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of schizophrenia, symptoms of psychosis. You could have bipolar with symptoms of so many other, from different other disorders as well. And it's very important for us to look at mental health from a biopsychosocial model. And before anyone says anything, you can trust me because I have a master's degree I'm about to have a master's degree in psychology and neuroscience and mental health from King's College, just to add that in. But it is very important for us to look at this from a biopsychosocial perspective because, let's say, from a biological perspective, right? Think about it as a Venn diagram, if you may. You have the biological aspect, which means that you look at the gender identity of the person. If you're a female, there are higher chances of you developing depression. If you're a male, there are higher chances of you developing schizophrenia. If you have depression, a male person with depression have higher chance of actually completing suicide as compared to females. And I say females have higher chances of developing depression because you also have menopausal depression, postpartum depression, and so on. So this is from the gender side, right? People with disability have higher chances of developing mental health disorder as well. You look at people with genetics pass on, right? We look at the epigenetic. So, we now know that schizophrenia can be passed on through your genes as well. Depression, we are now seeing, evidence that it can be passed on through genes as well. We also see, people with aggression and whatnot, it could be there in their genes as well. So this is the biological side. Psychology side is where we look at past traumas. We look at their childhood. We look at their coping skills. We look at how sensitive they are. We look at their worldview of how they view the world, how they view themselves. And that is more of the psychological side or the psychological markup of the person. And then we look at the social and environment side. So social side, we look at, where they live, the social construct around them. We look at their, their financial capability, their financial stability. We look at, the cultural aspect of the person, what kind of culture have they been brought up in, the family aspect of that person, and also environment where we look at whether they are growing up in an environment of violence, environment that is full of drugs, or environment that is not full of greenery around them. Mm-hmm. All these things can lead to someone actually developing mental health condition as well. And so we need to look at these, construct of mental health both in silos at the same time in a Venn diagram, which means that someone might have it based only on a biological aspect of them. And if it's biological aspect, it means that they might need medication to help them cope with that symptoms that they have as well. And they might be needing that for the lifetime as well that they are. If it's psychological aspect, they might not need medication, they might need therapy to help them generate coping mechanism that they can work well with them. And then when it comes to, social aspect, they might then need family intervention, social intervention to help them gain that stability that they have as well. Mm-hmm. So you might have, biological and social aspect going hand in hand. You might have social psychology going hand in hand, mm-hmm. biology, psychology going hand, or you might have a jackpot where all the three of them are making you have this mental condition. So you need to, so that's why it is important that you work with your psychologist or your psychiatrist. Because when they meet you, they need to do psychoanalysis. And you open up to them. And only after psychoanalysis can they determine what will be best for you. But also in Thailand, a lot of times we run straight to a psychiatrist because we think of mental health to be diagnosed and cured by psychiatrists. But that's not always the case. If you go to a psychiatrist, especially in Thailand, because we have very low resources, they might just start you on medication right away, just to normalize the symptoms first. But if you already know that something is wrong, maybe the first step that you can take is to go to a psychologist, a counselor, a therapist, or something, because they cannot give you any medication, right? Yeah. So they have to start with therapy first to see if it works for you or not. And if it doesn't, then you go to a psychiatrist. Yeah. But if it works for you, then great. Cool, you don't have to be on medication, right? Good for you. But if it doesn't, then going on medication is important for you, then that might be something that you have to consider to go to as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sanju, for your insights and on the last bits about the neuroscience colleges and all that stuff too. I think it's very helpful because when we think of mental health, it's still quite a narrow subject. Like we don't think about the 3 circles that we talk about. We just think, okay, something's wrong with the brain, fix it.
If I just want to add, is that the idea that I want to share the biopsychosocial model for everyone to understand is that we cannot blame someone who developed depression, anxiety, that it's their fault for developing it, right?
Exactly.
A lot of time we say that ก็เป็นคนแบบนี้ไงถึงเลยมีโรคเครียดก็เป็นคนแบบนี้ไงถึงเลยมีปัญหา
You're just like this, so you're like that. You're just X or you're Y.
Yeah, you're overly sensitive. That's why you're having anxiety. You're overly sensitive. That's why you have depression. And a lot of times, we blame the people living with mental health disorder, and when we blame them, it's even harder for them to open up and for them to reach out for help.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very important that we cannot just go to the conclusion that the person developed these disorder, it's because of them or it's because of the way they are. We need to understand that we are all not doctors to go to the conclusion of why it is what it is. We need to let the experts do their job, and we need to support the people who need help that, hey, I don't know what's happening to you today. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm here to support you. If you need a hand, I'm here to be your hand so that you can hold my hand when you want to cry. I'll be the shoulder for you to lean on. And if you need someone to go to the clinic with you, I'm here to support you. And I want to learn with you through the journey because I want to be there for you. I think these are the most powerful thing you can say to someone who is not well right now, rather than blaming them for them feeling that way. It could be hard for you. It could be hard for you not knowing what to do, but at the end of the day, you cannot blame the person who's going through it as well. And that's why it's very important for us to understand that it's not an individual problem. It could be a collective problem that lead them to have depression, that lead them to have anxiety, that lead them to have trauma, right? It could be a collective thing that we have done for that person to feel that way. And how can we support them?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much on the final note, and definitely, social expectations, societal norms, cultural norms, and I think Thailand is, thanks to you, it's more open to discussing mental health and looking at it on a different light now. I think it's the beginning, but better than nothing, right? Compared to when you were diagnosed with depression, now we're moving into a different age. And the world is opening up, I believe, thankfully. So thank you so much for, coming here today and doing the podcast with me. I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from your story. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Yeah, and if anyone don't know how to, be support for someone that they know around them who might be, needing that safe space, we have developed a free course in basic psychological first aid as well. So you can get trained. So you can go to satiapp.co and get trained in basic psychological first aid in Thai language. Or you can also email us and we can provide you with the link to the English course as well to go through, how do you look at a person and understand if they are having any sort of symptoms of major depressive disorder or any other issues or not. How do you listen to them? How do you reflect their pain and their suffering? And how do you link them to proper help if they're in need of help? So it's a rule of 3 L's, so look, listen, and link. So, please, if you have time, I think it's a very important knowledge to have, especially if you want to be that safe space for anyone. Or if you don't know where to volunteer, you can come to Sati App as well, because we are constantly looking for volunteers to provide support to anyone in need of help. We have a lot of Thai listeners on our application right now, but we also want to build listeners in different languages to not only provide support for Thai people, but also expat community living in Thailand. So, if you know English, French, Burmese, or any other languages, please, if you have time, do volunteer on our application as well. I think it would be very beneficial for many, many people.
Thank you. And this is for Thailand people because of the landline, right?
It's not landline. It's through
Wi-Fi?
mobile application, so it's through your mobile data.
Oh,
But we are right now only working in Thailand. But next year, by Q2 of next year, we'll also be launching in Czech Republic as well. We're working with Ministry of Public Health and National Institute of Mental Health in Czech Republic. And we are also hoping to, open up to many other borders in both Europe, Africa, and Asia as well. So we are slowly opening ourselves across borders. But we also have Thai people from other countries calling in because sometimes they need, someone who speaks Thai.
Mm-hmm.
So they could be in another country, they use VPN to download the application, and then they reach out to a peer support in Thailand.
Okay, well, so it's basically kind of like worldwide for Thai people right now to call into Thailand. Yeah. Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Sanju. So you guys can go visit the Sati app. It's amazing. It's his intervention for the society. And let me know how you like the podcast and guests you would like in the next episodes. Thank you so much for listening with us, staying with us. Bye for now.
Bye.